Stanford researchers found one physiological act that cuts cortisol faster than meditation. And under stress, most professionals instinctively do the exact opposite. Not breathe slower, not sit still. The exact opposite. By the end of this video, you will have a precise 5-minute cortisol reset protocol that shuts down your stress response at the neurological level and restores full cognitive function before your next meeting. This is not a meditation tutorial. This is not a breathing exercise from a wellness app. What you are about to get is a 4-step neurological protocol, each step under 90 seconds, built on peer-reviewed research from Stanford and the Journal of Psychosomatic Research. You will understand exactly why your stress response hijacks your decision-making, and you will have a same-day reset system that fits between back-to-back meetings. No mat required, no app required, just the biology working in your favor. Here's the real problem. Cortisol is not just the stress hormone, it is the performance tax you pay every single hour you stay in a reactive state. When cortisol is elevated, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for strategic thinking, impulse control, and complex decision-making, goes offline. Stanford neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky has documented this for decades. Sustained cortisol exposure measurably shrinks prefrontal cortex gray matter volume. In practical terms, that means a high cortisol afternoon does not just feel bad. It costs the average professional approximately 2.3 hours of effective cognitive output per day. That is not a wellness statistic. That is a performance crisis hiding inside what most people call a stressful week. The protocol in this video exists to stop that drain before it compounds. Step 1 of the reset is the mechanism Stanford identified as the single fastest cortisol-reducing act available to a human body without pharmacological intervention. It is called the physiological sigh, and it is not slow breathing. Most stressed professionals attempt to control their breath by slowing the exhale or counting inhales. That approach activates the parasympathetic system gradually, over minutes. The physiological sigh does something different at the structural level. You take a normal inhale through the nose, then at the top of that inhale, before exhaling, you take one sharp second inhale through the nose to fully inflate the alveoli in the lungs. Then you release a long, slow exhale through the mouth. That double inhale re-inflates collapsed air sacs, resets the CO2-oxygen balance faster than any single breath technique, and triggers an immediate parasympathetic surge. Stanford's Huberman lab published data showing this single breath pattern reduced subjective stress ratings by 44% in under 30 seconds, faster than 5 minutes of guided meditation. For a professional in back-to-back meetings, this means your cortisol begins dropping before the next agenda item is introduced. Do this twice in sequence. That is step 1. 90 seconds, zero equipment. The average professional takes 17 shallow, incomplete breaths per minute under stress, each one reinforcing the cortisol cycle instead of breaking it. Step 2 targets the autonomic nervous system through a channel most people completely ignore: peripheral temperature. The palms of your hands contain a unique network of arteriovenous anastomoses, blood vessel structures that act as direct radiators for core body temperature and, critically, as fast access portals to the autonomic nervous system. Research from Stanford's biology department, originally developed for athletic recovery, found that cooling the palms specifically, not ice baths, not cold showers, produced a measurable drop in sympathetic nervous system activation within 60 to 90 seconds. For a professional mid-crisis, this is executable anywhere. Run cold water over the inside of your wrists and palms for 60 seconds, or press a cold glass against both palms simultaneously. The performance consequence of skipping this step is significant. Elevated sympathetic tone, the fight-or-flight activation that follows a cortisol spike, directly impairs working memory by up to 30%, according to the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience. That 30% working memory deficit is why your responses in a high-stakes conversation feel slower and less precise than you know you are capable of. Cold peripheral reset is step 2. It takes 60 seconds and costs nothing. It is the step almost no protocol mentions, because it sounds too simple to be neurologically significant. and that is exactly why most people skip it. A 30% reduction in working memory means you are essentially running your most critical decisions on the cognitive equivalent of 2 hours of sleep, and most people do not notice until the damage is already done. Step 3 addresses why cortisol keeps spiking even after you have done the first 2 steps. The physiological sigh and the peripheral reset lower cortisol at the body level. But if the mental loop driving the stress is still running, your brain will regenerate the cortisol response within minutes. This is the trap that makes most short-term stress interventions feel like plugging a leak with one finger. The cognitive offload stack is a 90-second writing protocol derived from research at the University of Chicago on expressive writing and performance under pressure. The original study, led by Cyan Baylock, showed that writing about a stressor for as little as 8 minutes before a high-stakes task freed up working memory and reduced anxiety-driven performance errors by a measurable margin, because the act of externalizing a thought removes it from the active rehearsal loop in the prefrontal cortex. The compressed version for a professional midday: open any notes app or grab paper, write 3 lines, the specific stressor in 1 sentence, what you can control about it in 1 sentence, and the next concrete action in 1 sentence. 3 sentences, 90 seconds. This is not journaling. This is a cognitive cache clearing operation. It stops your brain from running the stress loop in the background while you are trying to think about something else. The performance consequence of skipping this step: every unresolved mental loop costs an estimated 10 to 15 minutes of fragmented attention per hour, meaning a single unprocessed stressor silently taxes your focus for the rest of your afternoon. One unresolved mental stressor costs the average professional 10 to 15 minutes of fragmented focus per hour, meaning by 5 p.m., that single morning conflict has already consumed over an hour of your cognitive bandwidth without you ever noticing. Now here is what was promised at the start, the part most people get exactly backwards, and the reason Stanford's finding is so counterintuitive. When the research team at Huberman Lab studied what people instinctively do under acute stress, they found the dominant behavioral pattern was breath holding. Not shallow breathing, actual involuntary breath holding, sometimes for 30 to 60 seconds at a time during a stressful event. Most people are not aware they do it. It happens during a difficult email, a tense meeting, a decision under pressure, and the consequence is catastrophic for cortisol management. Breath holding triggers a CO2 buildup that activates the amygdala's threat detection system and amplifies the cortisol spike rather than dampening it, the opposite of what every stressed professional needs. The fourth and final step of the reset is the anchor breath, and it exists to counteract this unconscious pattern. Set a single tactile anchor. Every time you touch your keyboard, feel your chair back, or pick up your phone, take one intentional exhale through the mouth before doing anything else. One exhale. That is the anchor. Over 48 hours, this single conditioned response rewires the automatic breath-holding pattern because you are inserting a parasympathetic trigger at the exact moment stress response hardware fires. This is not mindfulness philosophy. This is classical conditioning applied to your autonomic nervous system. The research on conditioned respiratory responses shows that within 2 days of consistent anchoring, the exhalation becomes automatic at the trigger moment, meaning your nervous system begins self-regulating before cortisol even has time to spike. This is why the protocol works as a system and not as 4 isolated tips. And this is what most people do the opposite of. Under stress, they hold. The anchor trains you to release, on contact, every time. Here's what Growth Daily needs to know to build the next protocol specifically for your situation. Drop one word in the comments right now: morning, afternoon, or evening. The time of day your cortisol and stress peaks hardest. That single data point shapes the next video. The top responses will determine what protocol gets built next week. If this protocol was useful, subscribe to Growth Daily, because next week the channel is publishing the Prefrontal Cortex Recovery Stack, a 7-minute system built on MIT decision science research that shows exactly how to restore your highest level thinking after an afternoon of reactive cortisol-soaked work. not motivation, not mindset. A precise, research-mapped protocol for getting your strategic brain back online in the same workday. Subscribe now and it will be the first thing in your feed when it drops. The channel publishes one video per week. One lever, one protocol, under 12 minutes. Nothing else.